This is Enzo Maresca, and this is Graham Potter. Two different managers, two different stories. Or so we thought, because watching Chelsea this season, the feeling is eerily familiar. It was supposed to be a new era, yet somehow it looks like history repeating itself. But how exactly are they so familiar? All the promise Chelsea showed against Liverpool, the cracks beneath the surface have been there for weeks, and they've been costly. It began at Brentford. A match that should have been routine turned into another episode of frustration. Chelsea were flat in the first half, lifeless, disconnected, forcing Maresca to make 3 substitutions at halftime just to jolt them awake. It seemed to work. Cole Palmer equalized on his return from injury, and Moises Caicedo's thunderbolt in the 85th minute looked to have completed the comeback. For a moment, Chelsea were top of the live table, but in stoppage time, it all fell apart again. A long throw, a scramble, and in the 93rd minute, Fabio Carvalho bundled home the equalizer. 2 points dropped. Another reminder that Maresca's Chelsea don't yet know how to hold on to leads. In Europe, it was Bayern Munich who tore those cracks wide open. From the first whistle, Chelsea were overpowered, overwhelmed, and outthought. Maresca's plan, to press high and play out from the back, backfired. Bayern smothered their build-up, forced errors, and punished every mistake. Chalobah's own goal, Caicedo's rash foul, and Gusto's misjudged pass were all symptoms of a team unsure of what to do under pressure. But the bigger issue wasn't just the goals, it was Maresca's reaction, or lack of it. He waited until the 70th minute to change things. By then, Bayern were cruising at 3-1. The game had slipped away long before the substitutions arrived. For a coach who preaches adaptability, his hesitation told another story, one of a manager still learning how to manage chaos in real time. Then came Manchester United. A red card to Robert Sanchez in the opening minutes left Chelsea vulnerable, and Maresca responded by removing his attackers, turning the team into a 10-man blockade. It didn't work. United dominated, scored twice, and when they themselves went down to 10 men, Chelsea had no one left to attack. Maresca made history, the wrong kind, becoming the first manager in Premier League history to make 5 substitutions in the first 20 minutes of a game. Panic dressed up as pragmatism, and against Brighton, déjà vu. Another red card, this time for Chalobah, and the same reaction: retreat, defend deep, survive. Except Chelsea didn't survive. They conceded 3 goals and threw away another winnable match. To his credit, Maresca didn't hide from it. For sure, I could have done better, he admitted. It's part of the process. I'm learning. It was honest. It was human. But at Chelsea, a club that devours managers, honesty doesn't buy time. Because while he insists it's all part of a process, Chelsea fans have seen this movie before. Because if all this sounds familiar, it's because we've lived it before, under a man who once promised the very same process. When Graham Potter walked through the doors at Cobham in September 2022, he represented something new. Or at least, that's what Chelsea hoped for. Thomas had just been sacked, and Todd Boehly's new regime wanted a long-term project coach. Potter, fresh from impressing at Brighton, was supposed to bring calm, structure, and identity. His first game, a 1-1 draw with RB Salzburg in the Champions League, was steady, but unspectacular. Then came the spark: 6 straight wins in all competitions, 4 clean sheets, whispers of progress. For a brief moment, it looked like the vision was working, but then the cracks began to show. Inconsistencies crept in. The patterns disappeared. Confidence drained from the squad, and so did direction. By April, barely 7 months later, Potter was gone, another casualty of the Chelsea machine. Fast forward to Enzo Maresca. On paper, his story couldn't be more different. He wasn't parachuted in mid-crisis. He was the architect of Chelsea's revival. In his first season, he led them to a top 4 finish, lifted the UEFA Conference League, and capped it off by beating PSG, the European champions, in the Club World Cup final. It was supposed to be the start of something bigger, a return to the elite. That's why this second season feels so confusing. Chelsea were meant to be title contenders. They were supposed to build on that momentum. Instead, they've looked brilliant one week and broken the next. And while Potter's downfall was about losing control, Maresca's challenge is about sustaining it. He's inherited a far more talented, balanced squad, one that Mauricio Pochettino had already steadied after finishing 6th the year before. Players like Cole Palmer, who had the most goal contributions in the Premier League before Maresca arrived, should have been the cornerstone of Chelsea's title charge. Yet somehow, Palmer now looks blunted, playing deeper, wider, anywhere but his most dangerous zone. It's not that Maresca has failed, but when patterns repeat, the tactical stubbornness, the muted stars, fans can't help but remember Potter. Both men were hired for their brains. Both preached process and patience. And both found out sooner or later that patience is a currency Chelsea rarely trades in. The question now isn't whether Maresca is another Potter. It's whether he can avoid becoming one. Every manager has growing pains, but at Chelsea, they're magnified under floodlights. For Enzo Maresca, the challenge isn't about philosophy or ambition, it's about timing. His ideas are clear, but his reactions often aren't. And in a club where the smallest lapse can flip momentum, that inexperience is starting to cost points and belief. The signs have been there all season. The collapse at Brighton, the defensive retreat against Manchester United, the late heartbreak at Brentford, they all share a pattern. Maresca's teams start with control, dictate tempo, and look comfortable until something goes wrong. A red card, a mistake, a shift in momentum, and suddenly everything unravels. Instead of adapting quickly, he hesitates. Substitutions come late, tactical adjustments too cautious. It's not a lack of intelligence, it's a lack of instinct. Great managers like Mourinho developed that sixth sense for in-game chaos, knowing when to gamble, when to dig in, when to rip up the plan. Maresca, still in just his 3rd season of senior management, is learning those lessons the hard way. That's what makes his journey so complicated. He's not a bad coach, far from it. The structure, the bravery, the technical detail are all there. You can see what he's trying to build, but at Chelsea, the margin for error is microscopic. Every tactical misstep becomes a headline. Every defeat becomes a referendum on his credentials. And this inconsistency, beating Liverpool one week, folding against Brighton the next, doesn't just confuse the fans. It seeps into the dressing room. Players start doubting the plan. Confidence flickers. Suddenly, the beautiful football becomes hesitant, risk-averse. And in the Premier League, hesitation is punished. Maresca's post-match honesty, admitting he's still learning and could have reacted differently, is admirable. But honesty doesn't buy time at Chelsea. It only reminds everyone how raw he still is. He's proven he can build a system. The question now is whether he can survive the chaos that tests it. Because at a club where patience wears thin and the pressure never dips, inexperience isn't just a weakness. It's an invitation for history to repeat itself. And that's the thing about Chelsea. It doesn't just test your tactics, it tests your character. Managing Chelsea isn't just about football, it's about surviving the storm. This is a club that eats indecision alive. Every manager who walks into Stamford Bridge knows it's not just tactics and training sessions, it's expectation, legacy, and pressure wrapped into one. Enzo Maresca might not say it out loud, but he's feeling that weight. Every manager before him has. The Chelsea job doesn't give you time to grow, it demands results first and development later. It's a place built on trophies, not trust. Even in transition, the standard has never changed. Think about it. This is a club that's won 2 Champions Leagues, 5 Premier Leagues, and countless domestic cups in the last 2 decades. It's a club defined by short-term brilliance rather than long-term patience. From Mourinho to Ancelotti, from Di Matteo to Tuchel, the Chelsea way has always been ruthless efficiency. Win or you're gone. And that's the paradox Maresca faces. He's been hired to create identity, youth integration, and sustainability. But he's judged like a man hired to win now. The same fans who applauded his Conference League triumph and Club World Cup victory last season are now asking why Chelsea aren't challenging for the Premier League. In their eyes, progress is a byproduct of silverware, not the other way around. The emotional weight of that expectation seeps into everything. Every press conference becomes a trial, every substitution a debate, every dropped point feels like a countdown. And for a manager still finding his voice at the top level, that kind of scrutiny can consume you before your ideas ever take root. At Leicester, Maresca could experiment. At Chelsea, every experiment risks a headline. And when inconsistency creeps in, the noise grows louder. Suddenly, it's not just about tactics, it's It's about survival. The truth is, Chelsea doesn't wait for potential to bloom. It demands brilliance immediately. And while Maresca might be building something beautiful beneath the surface, history has shown that beauty alone doesn't buy you time here, because sooner or later, Chelsea will face a choice. Gamble on Maresca's long-term vision, or cut the cord before the storm swallows him too. Chelsea now stand at a crossroads, one they've been at many times before. Stick or twist. Believe in the process, or protect the brand. It's a familiar tension between the club's identity as serial winners and its newfound ambition to be sustainable, modern, and patient. Because Enzo Maresca, for all his flaws, represents something Chelsea haven't had in years: continuity. He's already proven he can win. The Conference League and Club World Cup last season weren't meaningless trophies. They showed a manager capable of building momentum, creating belief, and extracting results under pressure. Beating PSG, the reigning European champions, in a global final wasn't luck. It was validation. But this season has brought something different: inconsistency, confusion, the sense that Chelsea are trapped somewhere between potential and performance. Good enough to beat Liverpool, yet careless enough to throw away points to Brentford or Brighton. And that inconsistency poses the hardest question of all. Is this just a phase of growth or a warning sign? The temptation to pull the trigger early is always there. This is Chelsea, after all, a club that has built empires on decisive action. When things wobble, the instinct is to reset. New manager, new ideas, new hope, but every reset comes with a cost. Lost progress, lost confidence, lost time. If the owners truly believe in a long-term project, this is where they prove it. Because great managers aren't born through comfort, they're forged in turbulence. Look at Mikel Arteta. When he took over Arsenal, he was a rookie, fresh from being Pep's assistant. He stumbled, finished 8th twice, and endured fan frustration for years. Now, in his 6th season, Arsenal are consistent title contenders, but that patience came at the price of trophies. And that's where Chelsea's DNA clashes with the idea of a project. Are Chelsea fans willing to wait that long? Are they content to see progress without silverware? History suggests otherwise. Stamford Bridge demands instant validation. So the question becomes, do Chelsea gamble on Maresca's evolution, accepting the growing pains that come with it, or cut their losses before inconsistency becomes collapse? Because right now, the club sits on the edge of two futures. One where Maresca matures into the visionary he's trying to be, and another where Chelsea's impatience writes the same story all over again. So, what do you think? Is Enzo Maresca really the man to take Chelsea forward? Or will his inexperience bring the club towards trophy-less seasons? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for more football deep dives.